I'm Ricky Fleming. I'm from Moshville Times. I'm delighted to be welcomed by Moshville Time regulars and Scottish heavyweight bruisers, Dog Tired. I've got guitarist Luke and I've got the drummer Keith. So guys, first of all, it's good to see you. So it's been a while since we chatted and the world seems to have turned to shit. So how are you guys doing? Are you still working, etc.?
Yeah, still working, but obviously I've been working from home through the whole thing, so I've not had to really deal. Unfortunately, I've not had furlough, which would be amazing, but my girlfriend's been on furlough since the start, and I'm jealous. She just plays Zelda, and I'm sitting working in the living room. But yeah, been all good. I mean, obviously the virus is crap, and it's ruined a lot of things for the band and stuff, but a lot of it's postponed. So yeah, Luke, I think you...
So like I've officially, I guess, I'm a key worker. But when it all kicked off, I was delivering like free school meals and food to kids and families that needed it and stuff like that. And then we were meeting up with some of the young people that I work with on a one-to-one basis, but like socially distanced to the fact that be at the other end of a classroom chatting to a young guy like, turn to page 4. But to be honest, like it was. It's proper shit, but it was nice to be able to actually get out and do something that you feel like's worthwhile and stuff like that. Even just like when it full lockdown in March was like fully kicking in, it was nice to have a reason to be able to go out in the van and just like deliver food and stuff like that. I actually feel that
lives, and I'm working for a bank.
but at the same time, it's like, I think I was kind of lucky in a sense that I managed to get out and actually do those things too. Whereas I actually feel for folk that had to work from home, because I think it would go mental.
Yeah. First section just felt so strange because obviously we were just in our house. The only time you went out was to the shop, so you get that feeling of just like, how bad is this? It could be like apocalyptic outside your house. Yeah. Whereas you were getting out and thinking like nothing's really that different.
So when I dropped that drum gear off to you, like it was like maybe end of March and that, and Keith came out just like looking as if it's like somebody from Mad Max is coming past her. Keith was cool, man. Here's the drum gear.
I think you're right though, Keith. I think you raised a valid point. Like I think mental health is going to be absolutely huge at the end of this. You know, it's just. It's going to be absolutely crazy. But
I think vocals struggle to get back into society.
Yeah.
I think some people are quite adaptive. Like when you think about how quickly we adapted to going into this situation, I don't think it's going to be as bad as people think coming out of it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have struggled over it, but I think a lot of people have also kind of done something better for themselves, like bettered themselves in some way, learned a skill, just done something that's kind of made them feel like they've spent their time well. A lot of people have also saved money, managed to get themselves out of debt, but then obviously a lot of people have lost their jobs, so
yeah, sorry.
Like, well, probably more on the bad side.
Yeah,
but I'm talking about Keith. You're saying being adaptable, and I think human beings are naturally kind of adaptable anyway. And it was definitely weird for everyone going into this, but it was almost, especially in Scotland, like suddenly everyone just accepted that this is life for the time being.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my wife, being like, "Oh, I bet it'll be weird when phase 3 comes in. You're like to actually have a proper bevy with your mates," and within half an hour, me and Keith felt like old times, eh? Felt like none had changed. We're just absolutely steaming, shouting pish. Right, so.
Yeah, that one
I was
time.
Like, it certainly didn't take long to adapt getting back into this.
As soon as we were allowed in your gardens, right, there was a day that was sunny. And so I went down to Luke's garden because you could climb over the back wall and then just sit far apart. So we sat far apart in his back garden while it was sunny. Then it got dark. And then it started pissing with rain, and we were still sitting there. I was in my shorts and t-shirt in the rain, taking care of the tenants, just like listening to tunes. I had the little speaker in a tenant's crate under my chair so it wouldn't be soaked, and we were just listening to tunes like.
Just saying. At least it's no raining.
So with the lockdown, then, have you used this time constructively and written more songs?
Initially, we hadn't. It'd just been Luke that had been writing on his own because obviously I don't have a kit in my house. I can't have an acoustic kit, and I'm in a top floor flat, so I can't even have an electronic one because for one, there's no space, and for two, even if you've got it's padded and stuff like that, even though it's for being silent, it still goes through the whole house. Yeah. Because you're still battering the floor. If you think about just hitting the floor, it makes a lot of noise. So I've not really been able to practice. I should have probably practiced on a pad more, but I've only started that recently. But we've been able to get in and jam, like me and Luke, and written, like we've got 2 new tunes pretty much up to scratch now. And obviously we're going to have to relearn all the stuff from the last album, because we spent a lot of time without that. But at the same time, it's been good for like basically Luke getting in a room and going Rain Man and getting riffs down, and just he's got like so many songs together that we then need to get in a room and go, that doesn't make any sense.
And a lot of the time I'll be like, I know, right? How good is that?
So you're like,
It's been good. It's been good. Like writing wise, I kind of made like a point of like just periodically through the day, each day when I was kind of locked down, and being like, just make sure you're not just sitting vegetating in front of computer games or that. Make sure you're picking up the guitar or even just dossing about on the keyboard and stuff like that. So I've got like a big kind of just bank of riffs, and we've kind of just been now going into practice and just taking them out and just kind of creating songs. But I mean, I think we've had about, since phase 3, about 6 jams that have been about like 4 hours long each, Keith, or something like that. Man.
Yeah, I think so.
But, so I was just a sheer excitement of we're allowed to do this. Amazing. So it's been really good fun, and it's nice to, even though like lockdown's pish, it was nice to maybe have that time that you wouldn't usually have to be able to like write like riffs and spend time on it. And I've also wrote tons of keyboard stuff on that for Cyberwolf and that as well. So it's been, I feel like for me it's been productive. But to be honest, if you were waking up and having a shower and brushing your teeth, that was as productive as you should be. You know what I mean? It's not like there's no rule. You didn't need to get super fit or anything like that. Like so.
Yeah. So when it was during the lockdown, then how did you communicate your ideas to the rest of the guys?
I think Luke just kept them in his head. He sometimes showed me them after, when we got to like the phase 2 where we could sit in the garden. That's what we were playing when we were sitting in the rain. He's just like, listen to this tune, and he's just like recorded it on his like he's got
laptop,
the room that he's sitting in actually. But he's got the equipment in there to basically record it, and he'll just show me the riffs while we're drunk, and then I'll forget them all. And then, and then we get to jam, and he's like, "Oh, I remember this riff," and he just starts singing it. And I'm like, "I have no idea what riff that is." So
I'm holding the guitar, singing it.
It's like singing it. Like,
who's this, mate?
I'm like, "Aye, man." So I basically just play it and guess what I'm doing, and then if there's a bit where he gurns, I'm like, "Right, that sounds good." So we'll keep that, and then we'll move on. But basically, I mean, he's got most of the structures in his head, and then he comes to the room, and I go, "That structure doesn't make any sense." And then so we rejig it about, and then we end up with a tune basically. It was quite annoying that during that whole time I've not been able to do much. Because obviously that's like 4 months, but at the same time it gives you just a wee bit time to not have all the other stuff that's associated with a band there. Like, you know how obviously you've got like touring, you've got all that sort of stuff, playing, trying to get gigs, trying to even just form relationships and stuff like that with people. You've got none of that. So being off that for a while is quite good, because then when you come back, you're just even more hungry for it.
I think there's definitely something. I mean, it's absolutely shit that there's no gigs and everyone's plans have been cancelled that's even remotely to do with live music. But there's something quite nice about the almost sudden simplification of it now. It's just like, right, just all you can do is go into a jam room and write riffs. That's it, and make noise. So there's something quite nice about that short period to be able to do that kind of thing. So.
Now you raised a valid point there. It's like it's not as if you're going to be behind anybody. Everybody else is in the exact same situation. So it's like you're following.
Unless there's folk having sneaky jams,
Stealth jams.
These videos like Razor Sharp Death Blizzard, not that they were having sneaky jams, but their drummer's got a kit in his house and he's just like filming himself practicing all day, and I'm like,
I would count that as in drumming terms, that's fucking cheating. Everyone else is
definitely cheating.
10% of drummers in the entire world have some sort of kit set up in their bedroom or like a garage or that.
And they'll all spend this time getting amazing, and I'm just like eating.
Very much, Leon, you're a jammy bastard. That's that.
So you guys released your latest album, The Electric Abyss, in September of last year. So how have the responses been, and how much fun was it to play the songs live when you could?
The response has been really good. Like, I think better than any album that was released before. It seems that, well, for me and Keith, we always say it's like this is the one that we're definitely most happy with today. It's exactly what we had envisioned like way back. But I think the response has been amazing. We've toured it a little bit, a fair whack through last year, and very early this year we managed to get to Ireland before all this kicked in. And response has been amazing. Folk are really liking it. Also, I'd say is that directly that album that got us onto Bloodstock as well. Because Simon had heard the album, he was like, that album's amazing, a long time coming, do you want to play Bloodstock? And we were like, fucking yes. I'm sure I said yes before he finished the sentence.
No, we don't want to play Bloodstock. Yeah, all the reviews and everything as well for the album when it first came out, they've all been amazing. Like, I think the lowest score was probably about 8 out of 10, which is amazing for an album. Everything we got back was really positive, and obviously we were just doing it off of our own back, like sending it through to everyone. Whereas I think like a lot of people get PR companies to do it, so they're getting more of the sort of major things. But all the people that we sent it to, we got really good reviews, which is always good. And everyone we've talked to be honest, the best reviews we've probably had are speaking to a few people that we know from Newcastle, the guys for Boz, and they just go massively deep into the album because it's just like, I just basically smoke loads of weed and listen to it, and he knows everything like in depth about the album and like the concepts behind it and everything, and you're just like, how do you even know that?
Well, first time we were ever playing any song from Electric Abyss in Newcastle, and it looked like Steve Marshall knew more of the lyrics than I did. I was like, what's going on? Shouting them and that. I was like, fucking hell, you read the booklet. That's what's happening. But playing it, sorry, going back to the point that like you were saying, like what was it like to play it live? I remember especially the first time when we had our album launch on LaBelle. We rehearsed it to fuck, because like the idea is you rehearse an album for the studio, and then I think after you've recorded it and you've heard it back, then you start rehearsing for it live. And even though it's the same songs, they can be like drastically different than what you're doing. So I remember like definite excitement for the first gig of the Electric Abyss tour. But I'm pretty sure, Keith, we were all shouting it as well. It's that oh fuck Ken, like. But it went really well. And then after that, you've got the first one out of the way, and then it's about just trying to fight to make it motor skills, to get it to the point that you don't have to think about it at all when you play it. So that's what we're kind of getting to. That's what we were getting to till lockdown.
Yeah. That's excellent. Thanks for that. So again, recently you released a video in May for Lord of the Vile from the album. So how was that made, and how the response has been for that? And could you go on a bit about what Lord of the Vile is about?
If I'm going to get a beer, I'll leave this to you. Be 2 seconds.
Well, you can answer the end bit. Yeah, Lord of the Vile was basically our friend Alan Swan, who does like gig photography and stuff like that. He started doing videos recently. He did his first one was an Axer, and then he did I think he's maybe done 3. He's done an Ifrian one, and he done the one for us for I've just completed Dagos 9. Yeah, he done Dagos 9, and that video was just in our practice room, but it looks amazing. Like the quality of it is great, and for being like, I think that was maybe his 3rd video, it's unbelievably good, like the quality. So we were definitely going back to Alan. Plus, he's a good mate, so we were going with Alan, and the whole idea that we had behind it was I don't know if you've ever seen John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness film. It's based around that. So's the song, and Luke will probably talk about that a bit. But the idea was to have that. So we went and we filmed in Leith Biscuit Factory, which is just like this. It's a building that's still used, but it looks derelict. It's very cool. And we were up on the top floor, and we just basically, we had a day that we'd booked, and we went in and just set up the equipment in this big open hall, and then we had like extras basically being almost like mindless, all bums pretty much. But when we were there, we got so many complaints that the amount of time that we could actually end up filming was shortened massively. Like we were there from like 11 o'clock. We started playing and people came up going mental, because it turns out that they've actually got like salons and stuff downstairs with people working and everything. So we got so many complaints that we had to only film scenes that didn't involve the drums, because I've never played drums that were that loud in my entire life. Like I wish I could.
It was proper.
But it was so loud. There was so many complaints and stuff that we actually started properly filming stuff with a kit round about like 7 or something like that, and then we didn't have that long, and then before the extras all turned up, and we had to film all those bits. So considering like how short a time period it is, I'm really amazed at how good footage Alan got and how well it's ended up looking and how good it started looking. But yeah, look, I'll let you explain a bit more about the concept.
Well, the concept of what the lyrics. So we had a song called Outpost 31 on the previous album. It came from the Sun. It's obviously about like John Carpenter's The Thing. So originally when he had made that film, The Thing, Prince of Darkness, and a film called In the Mouth of Madness, they meant to be like a trilogy of films. that they all exist in the same universe.
Yeah.
So we were like being absolute fanboys. We were like, oh well, we've done the one for the Thing. We should definitely make a song about the Prince of Darkness. So it's not directly about the Prince of Darkness, but definitely the kind of theme and vibe of Lord of the Vile is about the kind of second coming of Satan and all that cool evil shit. So I mean that's pretty much the premise of the song. Kind of thing. When I was writing the lyrics for that one, I didn't want to be too stringent on making it all about the film. Yeah. So I didn't want to like suddenly just read the back of the video, which sounds cool. It's cool idea in theory. Just read the back of the video and be like, "There's the lyrics. We'll just sing that." So it would put a wee bit more effort into them.
I like that you say that, but you've definitely done that before.
Oh, definitely. I've definitely. Next tune. But you just close your eyes. You can't pick the video. You just have to close your eyes and randomly pick. Right? Oh fuck! Looks like we're singing about twins.
Overboard with Kurt Russell, definitely. Yeah, but the handy thing about that video as well is we recorded it, had extras, and it was right before COVID. So it meant that while that was getting worked on, no other band could have a video out with people in the video, like extras, and actually have the band play, and everyone was doing these locked-in videos, and then we got to release one that was like a full video.
Yeah,
which
was, I mean, the end product's amazing. What Alan's done's great, but there was loads of like editing kind of evenings we would have over Zoom, and that was like tough going for like Alan and me, like because it's that frustration that if you were in the same room, that would have been all sorted within an hour, but it's just having to use. I mean, it's amazing that we do have things like Zoom, so we can still keep in contact and do things like that. Yeah. But it is really frustrating on a kind of business level when you need to do something like that intricate. Yeah. It was a fucking nightmare, to be honest, But the end product's amazing, and I'm really chuffed the way it's kind of came out. And I think also, as Keith was saying about uploading a video that's got people in it during the time that was the height of lockdown for folk, it was almost maybe a bit of breath of fresh air for folk to see. It was almost a reminder of, aye, that's what life's like. Like, that's what we're looking forward to. So, aye.
No, brilliant. Thanks very much, guys. So for those that are new to the band then, so how would you say it compares to your earlier material? And do you think you've found the sound that you've been looking for with your latest album, Electric Abyss?
100%. Like, this is the sound that we've been going for. We get gradually heavier. So if you're listening to our older stuff, we're still heavy, but continually through our albums we get heavier, and the stuff we're working on right now is even heavier. So, yeah, we're not going to suddenly get all light on everyone. Like, the next album's going to be heavy and disgusting. But
it's going to be a pop classic with Keith wearing a dress.
Yeah, probably. But like the first album, Deadhead Rebel, was recorded in like studios, and that's more sort of like, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's more sort of old style groovy rather than being as heavy and as chunky as we've got now. And we've just kind of developed over time. Like, obviously Titan, we started to get heavier. Then we started introducing some shorter songs. By It Came From the Sun, shorter, faster tunes, because we were always on like big 8-minute epics and like stuff like that. Then we started to chuck in a couple of things like Maruta, where it was like fast as hell and finished quick, a load of riffs chucked in. And then I think we found a really good balance with the Electric Abyss between epic and like fast thrashy numbers and stuff like that. And the actual sound-wise, I'm definitely most happy with this album out of all of them so far. And it's weird because it's the most like, sorry, someone just came in my door, so it put me off.
Hello?
it's the most homegrown album, like, as in it was recorded in our jam room by Jamie Gilchrist, who is from King Witch. He recorded it in our jam room. Laura, who's his wife, who sings in King Witch, did all the artwork for it. Alan did all the photos for it. We got it printed by a place in Glasgow. Like, everything is so close by, whereas bands seem to be going out and getting people that have, like, say they produced a big band and they're like, oh, we've got them to do it, but then you don't get the same back and forth that we kind of got.
Yeah.
Because obviously we could sit in a room with Jamie and go, you've made that snare sound like Power Trip because you've been listening to too much Power Trip. It's got like all the reverb on it. Yeah. Nah, Jamie was
it was definitely like it was a nice experience creating the album, and as Keith was saying about being able to go backwards and forwards, like, all right, even just minor changes that me and Keith would be like, right, we'll change this, but right, Jamie, we're going back to remaster it or to look at this mix and stuff like that. To have that freedom to do that, and we did it multiple times, just driving through to Lauder, and it never felt like a hassle. It was always like, well, we're always wanting to get this the sound that we have always kind of dreamed of. And
Felt
because
like
we had that time to do that, that's why it came out for us as like the best thing we've done so far. And I'm really glad that we had that time to do that. So
I also really like the tunes in it in general. I think it's like a more mature version of Dog Tired, and it means that whenever we're playing sets now, the majority of it, and mostly all of it, is this new album. And that's how you can tell we're proud of it, because we're not even playing stuff from the last album, which I love those songs. Yeah. But at the same time, we feel so strongly about this album that even people that are coming to see us that liked us before, we're not playing any old stuff. So like,
yeah, I mean, we will.
Iron Maiden bringing out a new album and then only playing the new one, everyone will be raging. Whereas everyone seems to be really happy while it's just playing songs they've never heard, like especially in the launch and stuff. So I'm really happy with it.
Excellent, thank you. So one thing I've noticed is that you guys don't seem to do EPs. So does that mean that you're just prolific songwriters and usually plan for an album, or are there plans in the future to release an EP?
So with EPs, I mean, I understand why bands release EPs. I mean, I'm in an AXA, we've released an EP. I'm going to release another EP. But with us, like Dog Tired, I personally love the feeling of an album. I think it's like a story. It's got like a start, middle, and end. And you don't particularly get that with EPs. I understand the importance of sometimes like releasing something that's short, because it means that you can kind of build on your kind of reaching more people at a quicker pace to like bringing out new songs. But there's something special about waiting, 2.5, 3 years to release a full album that's fucking mega. You know what I mean? It's got a full story. It's an absolute huge full package, deal with it kind of thing. That's always just the way we've done it. Yeah. So I can't see us. I mean, I never say never. We might release an EP, but it's always, EPs tend to be 5 tracks, whereas if you make 8 tracks as an album, so you know what I mean, it's like it almost feels like if you do an EP, you're not that far off. Just keep on going, and then you know what I mean.
I think part of it as well is in the way that we consume, because we're always like, I think we're all the same in the way that if say you're on Spotify even, and you pick something to listen to, you'll pick an album, so it just plays through, because an album is set up in a specific way so that the songs work together, and you know that like there's a lot of time spent on stuff like that, so that it flows the best. And that's how I would listen on Spotify. Whereas if a band brings out a single, which everything now seems to be about trying to stay relevant as constant as possible. But if you bring out a single, you're like, oh, there's a new single from them. Yeah, you listen to it, they get the views. But then if you're listening to that Spotify, you then have to immediately pick something else after it. Yeah. Whereas I quite like the fact you put on an album, you leave it on, and you do what you're doing. But yeah, I agree with Luke. It's the same thing. You want to have an album. You want it to be like this object.
and I do get that. Like I get singles. I can see people thinking, oh well, yeah, and the new generation are all just listening to like singles and they'll have them on a playlist. And yeah, folk do that, but I don't. I don't, and most of my pals don't. So it's a bit like, it feels just like a bit cheap to be like, well, I'll just release a single and change it. But it's like, well, I would rather hear an album. So why not just? I mean, the music's true to what we want to do. Why would we suddenly change by just releasing singles? We'll just be true to ourselves and do what we want to do. Like so, and that's fine. And if folk want to release singles or EPs, go for it. You know what I mean? Like we just want to release albums. So.
And we've not got a record label telling us what to do, so we can do what we want, and we can do release albums. So yeah, I think it'll still be that. Usually tends to be like a 3-year cycle. We don't even mean it, but it just that like you start writing, and then you're playing your stuff, and then you add in some new songs live, and then you kind of perfect all the stuff, and then bring out the album. But
that's excellent.
I'm just going to say, going by just now, Keith. Throwing a couple of new songs in the set might no happen. the set to like Name Day.
Yeah, I know.
So having known you guys for like some time on social media, then things seem to be very settled on the band members front. So how would you say you keep it all together, for example, when negotiating what stays in and out of a song? Like you were talking earlier about the fast stuff, and then you're talking about the groovy stuff. Who brings the fast stuff? Well,
we're quite lucky in the fact that we all have the same taste. Because we've been in a band for, like, there'll be slight changes and stuff like that, but we've all been in a band for so long. We all live in Pennycook. We've all been friends since we were younger. So it's a very similar circulation of bands that go around as in, like, what you listen to and everything like that. So we've all got the same sort of influences. There might be bits and pieces separate. Yeah. But that just means that when we're coming up with ideas, it's not like someone's like, oh, I don't like that because I don't like that style. We just kind of put it, it's like a pot that we're all putting into it. Usually Luke brings everything, like all these riffs to the table, and then we just kind
But then I still
a bit ridiculous and change little bits and pieces.
And I still say, like, the way that kind of we work is like the traditional kind of band sense. Keith mentioned the boiling pot, but I'm really into, and like, for instance, an example last night, Keith, we were jamming, and there was like, we kind of were lost in the middle of the middle eight of a song and being like, right, what's going on? It was kind of trying different ideas, and it was just a bit weird. And I was like, oh, what about this? Like, and it's just, Keith was there, immediately started playing, and I've changed something. And then we had this middle eight that was amazing, but that was no like pre-rehearsed riffs here or anything like that. Yeah. That middle eight wouldn't exist unless we were in a room together just making noise.
Yeah. So true sense of
that true sense of like being in a band and just fucking about, you know what I mean? And then being like, oh, that sounds cool. And there's no like, oh, it has to be this structure or like that, or I've rehearsed this before I've came in. That's proper band shit, you know, when you're just making up stuff together in the same room.
Also, as like the other angle of that question, I think the reason that we've managed to keep the same lineup for so long is because, well, obviously we're happy with everyone's instrument and how they're doing, sort of thing. But also, if something that's annoying us, we just argue with each other. We don't bottle up. We'll just shout at each other and then get over and done with it. And then afterwards, we're all like, fine.
So there's lots of disputes of like riffs and timings and blast beats and all that. And it usually starts off with me and Keith just shouting absolute fucking abuse at each other, just like horrendous abuse. And then that will just quickly simmer down into, that was actually quite a good idea. But yeah, Keith, you're right in the sense that like nothing ever gets bottled up. It's just like, you fucking chatty Cathy, right at the start, just immediate abuse, like fucking.
And looking back,
it's like everyone's quite open, so it's like.
Yeah. So when times were good, then where did you go about rehearsing and recording your songs?
Well, we've got a room just in New Battle Abbey. That's that beer going through him. We've got a room in New Battle Abbey, like sort of college area. It's like an old, I think it's an old women's barracks, actually. I don't really know, to be honest, but yeah, it's basically these buildings, and it's owned by, or at least leased by Ollie from A Ritual Spirit. So he owns the sort of room, and then they rent a room to us, which currently Dog Tired and Hammer share a room. Yeah. And which is handy for me because it means I don't need to move a drum kit or anything like that, which I used to have to do with 3 different bands. Constantly going about, that was a nightmare. But yeah, so we've just got this little room. We've kind of done up ourselves, and we've got all our own gear in it and everything, and we can go at any time and play for as long as we want. So we just pay monthly, which is perfect. That was also where we recorded the entire album. Yeah. Just with all Jamie's gear, we just put up some makeshift like blockers and stuff like that, so that it would separate sounds. We put the amps in the corridor and things like that, just to keep it separate. And that is also where we recorded that video for Daedalus 9. So it's just kind of, that room's come in very, very handy.
Sorry, dude, I'm a terrible interviewee. What are you saying?
I think we've finished with that question, Luke.
All right, I'll just leave.
Just talking about you. So there's obviously not going to be any live shows in the near future then. Did you have plans for the summer, and have you maybe got plans for next year or anything like that?
Well, we did. Was meant to be Bloodstock.
Aye.
But thankfully we've been added to the lineup on the postponed Bloodstock, so we've got that next year. There's also a couple of things in the pipeline for next year that will hopefully be cementing soon. A lot of things have been postponed. Yeah. Because of like timings, and obviously we're also wanting to help the local venues when they reopen. We'll hopefully be playing gigs with them to try and get a wee bit of revenue back and try and get people back in the pubs and stuff like that when it gets to the stage where you're allowed to. I wouldn't want to really play like a massively socially distanced gig and stuff. Yeah. I'm kind of hoping that they just cure it or it just fucks off.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I never say never, but the idea of like playing say to a big venue to a socially distanced crowd just doesn't seem particularly that enjoyable for punters or really for a band, and I think it'll make promoters very edgy as to whether or not even though they're going to cover their like kind of building costs at times, and I've seen loads of reports coming out saying it's actually not financially viable for venues to do that. Yeah. But at the same time, I definitely want to help the venues in Edinburgh as much as I possibly can, because like for instance Banjo Labyrinth and La Belle and Jill and Bannerman's have all been really good to us over the years, and it's about kind of giving that back, but it's kind of waiting to see what they're saying and what their thoughts are going to be on the whole thing. So I'm definitely never saying never to like a socially distanced gig, but the idea of it doesn't sound particularly fun. I would actually rather, like, say you filmed a set of the band in a venue, and then that got, like, as if it was a gig, got posted on the internet, and everyone tuned in at a certain time, and it was like watching a full kind of lineup of bands. I think that seems like more of a kind of viable and more exciting option kind of thing. But
there's a couple of bands that have done that recently, like Catatonia done it recently, and Flesh God on tomorrow as well. So it's something like a tenner to stream in to the gig, you know. But
yeah, I think like Bloodstock are doing that with all the other festivals, that Metal Allegiance or something like that.
Right.
Where you just like, you buy a ticket that's like, well, I think they made it £6.66, but yeah, you buy a ticket and there's multiple bands that have recorded a performance just for that, and then you just watch through it all, I think. But, yeah, that seems like quite a good idea, to be honest. Like, if you can't do anything else this year, maybe we can get in and record one of those, just like a live gig that isn't live.
Why not? Right, guys, we've got a few minutes left, so why not brag about the instruments that you use then? So, look, what do you use in the live environment? What do you use to record?
Well, just a guitar. It's pretty good. Like, I've always been a fan of ESP. Well, I'm a scaff, so I use LTDs, but I've used them for years. Mainly Explorers. They're in the car. I can't even show you. 7 strings always freaked me out. I was always a bit like, oh, what's going on there? 6 strings, tuned to B, skinny top, heavy bottom strings, again, all the metal kind of thing. So I'm still a big, massive child when it comes to guitars. It needs to have loads of spikes and look heavy metal as fuck. Otherwise, I'm a bit like, Well, I've started using this, and it's freaking Keith out. Yeah. So I've started using this. Just for writing riffs and that, and I brought it to practice, and Keith absolutely had a whitey. He was like, "There's not enough spikes in that, mate." So
also, you couldn't hit the squealer on Flesh Church with it, so it's out the door.
That was fucking one time, you little dick.
So, see, when you're playing a gig, then look, how many guitars do you bring with you?
Sorry, take my shoe. I just take 2. The 2 Explorers, I got my main one that's got the catwalk and shit on the front, and then I got a white one, and Keith actually sourced that from a guy at Bloodstock a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So I have just take those 2. One's tuned to B, and I'll tune that up for like the C sharp songs and that, and the other one's just tuned to G sharp for the big fat slug that's Beyond the Grave. So that's the kind of last song of the set. But I mean, if anything really happened and I broke a string, I could easily tune. It's not like it's set up different. I could just tune up the G sharp one and have that. But I mean, 2. I would never go any bigger than 2 because it wouldn't fit the van. So yeah.
Cool.
And also Black Star heads, and for recording the PV Invective, obviously. Which
I blew my head last night actually.
Yeah. Forgot about that.
That sounded a bit dodgy. No, the Black Star. Aye. So I was just jamming away. I was like, that sounded a bit funny. So I was standing beside my amp, and Keith's like, I can smell smoke. I was like,
I didn't say it in that voice.
That's what I heard. And then, do you know when you know something's officially broken? When we're all like, it was me, Barry, and Keith just staring at my amp, and then it just went, and the lights went off. Wee bit of smoke, and we're like, well, that's that then, eh? But it's better when something's officially broken and you know it's broken, rather than like trying to figure out it sounds different or anything like that. So I need to get that sorted, eh? So.
Well, Keith, Luke has used up all your time. You've got 1 minute to tell me what drum kit that you use then.
Sorry, I don't even know most of the stuff that I've got. I've got a Mapex Fat Bob snare, which is an absolute belter. I'm so glad I bought that right before we recorded the album, and I'm really happy with the snare sound on the album, which I've never really been before. I was always using 13-inch, and then that was 14 and just a belter. And that seems to be that's my favourite bit of kit. I've always used Iron Cobras for pedals. They're not speed kicks or anything, but they're heavy, so it's got a nice chunk to it. And cymbals wise, I'll just use anything that I can get in the shop after I broke one. So tends to be Sabians. I've got like 2 of the cymbals with holes in them because there was no 18 inches that didn't have holes, and so I just kept having to get one. So I use them for like bits and pieces. But apart from that, I've got a Mapex Pro M kit that I got before we recorded Titan, and I've just continued to use, which is like pinky purple fades into white, which originally when I was buying it, I thought, well, I can always paint it. And then I got it and I was like, no, I like this.
It sounds lame, but there's something weirdly attractively cool, but it gets cooler the more you see it. It gets more like, that's rubbish, and then you're like, that's a bit Miami Vice, and then suddenly like, that's a bit Vice City.
Yeah,
that's a bit Scarface. Like.
I quite like it. Like we've used it for all the Bob Fests and everything like that as well.
Aye. That's absolutely brilliant, guys. Unfortunately, our time is going to be up now, but it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I wish you all the best and dog tired. I'll catch you up very soon, okay? Take care, guys.
Yeah,
nice to see you, Ricky. Speak to you soon, pal.
Cheers.